It is October 27, 2025. I'm Frank Vaughn. I will always be Frank Vaughn. All I'll ever be is Frank Vaughn. I don't sell any products. I don't have any advertising, and I'm not monetized, but we'll talk about that later. I want to start here with this chart. China's gold stock levels 2009 and 2025. This is not a parabolic increase. This is a change in policy. This is a hockey stick laid flat with the shaft on the ground with the stick end, the puck end pointing up. Whatever the terminology is for the puck end of a stick, not really sure. The blade of the stick, that's what it's called. At any rate, this isn't just them hoarding gold. This is preparing for a monumental shift in the way international settlement occurs. International settlement being, you're going to have these paper fiat currencies, you're going to have these digital currencies. They're already digital. For those of you who are worried about central bank digital currencies and all this other stuff, tracking your privacy and everything else, most of the money traded in this day and age is digital anyway. It's on your credit card, it's in your bank account, you're just trading ledger entries back and forth between centralized institutions. So we're kind of already there, not to dismiss the concerns. I'm just saying there's change coming, and this is how you know. Countries don't do this without intent. This is real physical holdings, and this is just what they're claiming they have. They're likely understating this, and they're not the only central bank in the world that's doing this. The Indians are doing it. The Saudis are buying silver. The Russians are buying silver. COMEX has been bringing in supply for years now. There has been 5 years of shortfall in silver inventories, so the world is consuming more than it's manufacturing, and we have a thick inventory, but it is in decline. And I don't give a damn what the price does on a day-to-day basis, because some people have highlighted that the price is falling, and how would they ever build a new currency regime or a new international settlement layer with the price falling? Day-to-day fluctuations don't matter, and day-to-day fluctuations are driven by paper derivative markets. They do. We know about fractional reserve lending, or many people who are watching this are going to understand fractional reserve lending when it comes to banks and central banking and how they print money and interest and this fake paper fiat they create out of thin air. But they do the same thing in metals. There's these massive paper markets that are often 10x leveraged over inventories. If you look at the LBMA in London, their supply, they're way over 10x over leveraged. If all the people that hold paper stood for delivery, the whole scheme would collapse, and eventually a repricing is going to happen. That's my honest take and opinion. But this is what China's doing, and you can mimic this across the world in all of the real nations that put their national interest first. But then we have to have a conversation about Canada, the world's first post-national state with no core national identity and apparently no monetary or fiscal sense at all. The world is heading in a very different direction. We're setting up a multipolar system. I've said this before, and that multipolar system is going to be pegged by something very different than just plain old fiat and treasury notes like we knew them before. This change is still coming, and Canada is, of course, not preparing for it. We're not prepared for anything. For all the elbows up nonsense that's going around this country, it is a bipartisan issue, and this is actually what I want to get at. We need to correct the record, because yesterday I hit a hornet's nest. I don't know what I did. I think I triggered all the bots, and I'm going to talk about that separately. But there's a lot of people who blame the Liberal Party for selling off all the gold. And there are other people who blame the Conservative Party for selling off all the gold, and they want to make it a partisan issue between the two ruling parties. The issue is, as it's always been, they're two wings of the same bird. They both share responsibility for the destructive financial situation we find ourselves in. And I mean that structurally. I understand fully well, and I've talked about it on this channel, how the Liberal government has been signature since 2015 in spending more than we take in, and they're bankrupting the country. And I often think it's a plan. I'm not sure, but it certainly looks like a plan to me. But going to this chart, this is a chart of Canada's gold reserves, and we'll go to this is the source article. So I just want you to note the peaks. So we peaked in 1955, and we find out that in 1955 we had a prime minister who was a Liberal, Louis S. St. Laurent. And then Diefenbaker comes along in 57, and he nukes inventories. And I say nukes, it's nothing compared to what happened later. But this is Diefenbaker, and for those who don't know, Diefenbaker was a conservative. And then we go back, we get Lester B. Pearson. Gold supplies go back up to an all-time high, never achieved that high again, 1,000 tones. Incredible, right? And then, of course, after Mr. Pearson, we get the first term of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, which extends. His first term was 11 years. And what happens to Canada's gold stocks? They go into decline, and then they level off. They level off until 1980, and then they decline again, basically through Pierre Elliott Trudeau's last term. What happens here, folks, in 1985? Brian Mulroney happens, and that's where the meteoric decline occurs in our gold stocks and continues under Mulroney, and then Chrétien gets elected, and it continues and it continues and it continues until, according to this, we had 2.99 tons. So people like to focus on, when they're critical of Stephen Harper, is that he was the one who finished he was the one who finished selling off all our gold, but it's not true. He came into office in 2005, and he actually, under his watch, our gold reserves increased. Nowhere near what they needed to, but it was, I don't want to call it modest, I don't want to call it moderate, a token increase. Better than nothing. And then, of course, we know what happened next. Justin Trudeau was elected, and our gold reserves went to zero, where they have been stuck at since. So I just wanted to clear up. It was a bipartisan decision to sell off all of our gold reserves as a nation. In fact, the Progressive Conservative Party, which became the Conservative Party, under Brian Mulroney, was the worst offender by far. Not Pierre Elliott Trudeau, not Justin Trudeau, Brian Mulroney, who, to this day, when the Conservative Party has a convention, he's more than welcome to walk into the room and is treated like a hero. This crooked, money-grubbing, terrible politician in a line of terrible politicians is celebrated like some kind of hero. Nobody did more to leave us unprepared for the future we're about to come into. And that future is a U.S. dollar that is not the global reserve currency, that is not used for international settlements. The elbows up nonsense, this crowd that wants to talk about saving Canada from the great big bad evil orange man Trump. Now, admittedly, I have learned in the last couple of days that I am convinced, it's rare that I make a conclusion, but I have reached a conclusion, something decisive, and I'll just have to show you a little bit of where that decisiveness comes from. Because I hit a hornet's nest. We'll do this bit later. I hit a hornet's nest. And that hornet's nest was a couple tweets I made about Doug Ford, and also a tweet where I said, hang on, I got to get there. This one. The sheer amount of cursing, vitriol, hate, vulgarity, and just base human behavior makes me want to weep. I have no problem, by the way, admitting that big picture things, philosophical things, tragedies of the commons make me want to weep. Doesn't mean I let myself. But when I see the human condition in perpetual decline, when I see human nature turning to vulgarity and insult, when I see people behaving like base reptilians, it bothers me so much that I could weep or I could get angry. I could go either way. I don't tolerate the behavior that is common online from my own children. I don't tolerate it from myself. I feel guilty every time I call somebody a moron or an idiot, even if they deserve it. And I try not to use harsher language. I really struggle against my own innate desire. But let me finish reading the tweet. Canada has become a haven of outspoken, guttural, empty, incredibly loud, obnoxious, arrogant, and hubristic radicals. What happened to us? And as you can see, if I get my head out of the way, there's 1.5 thousand comments and posts in response to this one post. And I read through most of them, and most of them are exactly what I described, from left and from right. People cursing, swearing, name-calling, calling me a cuck, a retard, all these other things. And what I figured out is, I did a comparison, something I've never done. Over on my YouTube channel, Here's the big secret back end, folks. Let's just do a little screen refresh. There's 400 comments on my last video, and if we go to the content page, there's over 992 comments on the previous video, and there's 387 on the video before that, which is not at all dissimilar to the amount of engagement I had on that one X post. None of these comments are toxic waste like that. I'm not engaging in censorship on the back end. YouTube might be doing its own thing, but anybody that I've hidden from my channel, I periodically bring them back. I haven't had to hide anybody in a long time, and it's usually because they do something that could be damaging to the channel. I don't hide anybody for having a difference of opinion. Oftentimes, when somebody makes an opinion I really disagree with, I'll pin them. I'll pin them, and I'll let the community fight it out. But like it's the toxicity that is so prevalent on X doesn't exist in the YouTube comment section. And that got me thinking yesterday, what's this all about? And you might be familiar with this idea of dead internet theory. And if you're not, dead internet theory is the idea that a significant percentage of the engagement that we get is fake. It's fake. It's done by bots. It's done by language models. It's done by algorithmically, whether it's likes or shares or comments. And that's when I realized that I think at least half of the traffic on X is bots. Literal bots that just are there to spread toxicity. It serves several purposes. For one thing, it discourages people from engaging. Because if you think it's real, if you're a real and genuine person, if you're a fan of human engagement, if you're decent to your fellow human beings when you meet them on the street, if you hold the door for anybody, when you go to the restaurant, if you can afford to go to a restaurant these days, if you're one of those people, when you start trying to engage politically online and you encounter this wall of vitriol, it's discouraging. You take it to heart. You take it seriously. When people start saying all these mean things about you, about your family, about your kids, about the way you look, about the way you act, making all these aspersions, casting them at your feet, it discourages you, and you might retreat into a cone of silence because that's what they want. They want you silent. The other thing that it does is it actually encourages the people who are mentally unhinged and unstable, the Dunning-Krugerites that are out there unmasked, the people who are convinced that they're smart, I'm not one of them, to behave in a similar way. It influences their behavior towards more toxicity and towards more partisanship, and encourages them to block and wall themselves off. That's why I think the toxicity comes from both the left and the right. It's not like it's people try to make this a partisan thing. They jumped in. I mean, read through the comments. It's very instructive if you read through the replies on X and you think about what you're seeing. There are people who are engaged in the toxicity, and then there are people who are trying to label the left or the right as responsible for all the toxicity. I think more comes from the left. Left bot accounts, I don't think they're real, but it comes from the right as well. I had so many people on the right attacking me, and they listed all kinds of things that I agree with them on as reasons to hate me. And I'm like, you guys don't even know what I stand for, if you're even guys. You're bots. So anyway, why am I telling you all about this? Why am I telling you and sharing you this insight? Because once I figured out, and I genuinely think I figured it out. Like, I think I've accepted it. I'm not somebody that reaches sweeping conclusions without a preponderance of evidence. And the evidence to me seems crystal clear that if not most, a lot of this traffic is bot-driven. It ain't real. The toxicity, most of the toxicity out there, it's not real. It's artificial. It is creating a toxic response. I worry about what it's doing to people. I worry about what it's doing to their minds. I worry about the discouragement. I worry that it's encouraging people to be vulgar, vile beasts. But there is a silver lining in that if it's bots, then the humans that you meet on the street, the people that you interact with, particularly here in the West, it's amazing. People are so friendly here. Everybody wants to talk. People are genuinely curious. I actually noticed this, and I'm segueing, but there is this cynicism. What would you call it? The cynicism of interest. So there's this mentality that I can't help being in my head. It comes from Ontario, where when somebody asks about your life, you're always looking for the angle. You're always thinking they're being cynical or they're being sarcastic. There's so much passive aggression. So even when people compliment you, sometimes they're just trying to make subtle digs at you. It's this cosmopolitan mentality. And it doesn't exist out here among the natives. It doesn't exist. When they ask you about your life, they actually care about the answer. They're not judging you. Anyway, it gives me hope that human beings fundamentally are not as bad as what we're led to believe by these bot swarms online. I think human decency is still out there, and that gives me hope. And a little bit of hope never hurt anybody. Now, there's a lot of new eyes coming into the place, and sometimes I get the frequent criticism, likely from bots, that I'm some kind of grift operation. And I thought I would take a minute and do a segment on grift. And admittedly, we're using Grok here. It's an AI summary, and I don't usually use AI summaries, but I think this one's pretty thorough, and between this and a Google search, what's the difference? So, define the characteristics of grift in brief point form. Deceptive promises, offers high rewards or benefits with minimal effort or risk, often too good to be true. I don't offer you anything. I already give you everything that I'm doing, I give to you. I don't have ads. I don't have sponsorships. I'm not promising you anything. I'm giving it all to you up front. I was recently offered, and I'm not even kidding, they pitched me $500 US per video to embed a 60-second ad in every single video. And I turned them down, and they're not the only offer I've turned down. I have no idea why people are offering me money, because in my mind, I don't even have that much of a following, but the offers come in periodically. I say no to them all. I hate sitting through advertising. I personally, my ADHD brain hates sitting through advertising. When I click on a video and I start getting served ads, half the time I navigate away and I find the information somewhere else because it drives me nuts. I'm not judging anybody else for their models and their content models. What I'm saying is that how can I make you, the viewer, do something I'm not willing to do? So I don't do it. I'm not monetized, and I suffer the algorithmic penalties for not making Google money. Sucks to be us, I guess. I give you everything up front. The other thing, if I monetized, I would have to start, would have to start paying GST through YouTube if you did want to donate. I don't want you paying taxes. I don't want you paying any more taxes than you need to pay. I pay my so-called fair share. I pay what I'm required to, and I try to avoid charging people more than I need to. It's why I went into food when I was growing garlic and I was farming. The reason I liked producing food was there was no GST. It's wonderful. I like it that way. I like doing things that are consistent with how I want them done to me. I like things that are consistent with my own values, and that's the approach I've taken with the channel. Exploitation of trust targets vulnerable groups, elderly, desperate, or naive, using emotional appeals or authority figures. I don't do any of that. I don't use emotional appeals. I don't use authority figures, and I don't ask you for anything. I don't demand anything. I don't charge you anything. I have a donate link. I don't understand how people can call it a grift operation when there's a link and you can either click it or you don't click it. You want to understand, I had something like 10,000 views on yesterday's video. The day before that, I think that video is up to 26,000. I think the one before is like 6,000. Do you know how many people donated? Three people. $5 and $10, and the same person donated $25 twice. I never talk about the donations that come in. Almost nobody donates. It does happen. I'm not trying to be, I'm thankful for every single one that comes in. This is another thing about the channel and the structure. I don't give donors special attention because I don't want you paying for access to me, because I don't want to pay for access to other people. I either meet them in the flow of my life, but I don't pay somebody $1,000 or $500 or $5 just so I can have a few minutes of their time. I'm either going to get their time or I'm not going to get their time. And there's people that I privately have relations with, acquaintances, some friends, that I've met through this work that I talk to offline. Or actually, I talk to them online, but it's not in the course of the work. That stuff happens organically when it happens. And that's just the way it is. I don't want to be offering a cash for access group or anything. Like I don't want to do it, so I don't do it. So the exploitation of trust, I mean, how am I exploiting your trust? Lack of substance. No real product, service, or value, relies on hype, testimonials, or fake endorsements. I don't have any endorsements at all. I guess the comment section could be testimonials, but I don't do anything with them. And although I do offer value, at least according to you, the user, and I provide a service, which is these videos, I'm not selling you anything. I'm not promising anything. There's nothing for you to buy. There's no products. There's no t-shirts. If I start doing t-shirts, there'll be giveaways. I'll use them as a write-off because this is a business enterprise, but it's just the weirdest, most convoluted business enterprise I've ever been involved in my life. I do everything the hard way. Urgency pressure creates false scarcity or time limits to rush decisions and bypass scrutiny. Don't even think it applies. What am I trying to create scarcity of? Telling you that there's a distinct scarcity of sovereignty in Canada? Well, there is. Distinct level of scarcity when it comes to real fundamental human rights in Canada? Well, there is, when the charter can be suspended whenever they want, and they can be found to have wrongly done so and not face any criminal liability for it. They don't even give you fake property rights. So there's scarcity definitely in my content. I highlight scarcity, but I'm not monetizing that scarcity, so I'm not really sure how that could apply. Opaque operations. Hides details of how it works, costs, or risk, uses complex jargon and legal loopholes. It doesn't apply. Profit extraction. Primary goal is to siphon money quickly, upfront fees, subscriptions, or investments before vanishing or failing. Well, I will say that I have vanished a couple times. I don't think I've failed ever. Whenever I'm working on this, it grows and it works organically. Everything we got. We just hit 32,000 subscribers on YouTube last night. We got 24,500 on Twitter. And in spite of the fact that I think most of X's bots, my people are real. And I know they're real because in the engagement and the conversation and the way I interact with them, they prove their reality to me. The bots are always the same, by the way. They always have single-digit or double-digit follower accounts. They generally tend to be new accounts, and they just spew vitriol and nonsense. And unfortunately, by the way that X is designed, they get just as much play in the comment section as real people do. I wish Elon could figure out the bot problem. But I'm not going to vanish. I'm not failing. And I'm not really sure. I don't charge up for free subscriptions or investments. There's nothing. Everything's voluntary. If you want me to do this, you will figure out how to pay for it. You'll figure out how to give me an expense account to run so that I can go and do projects in the real world. You'll figure out how to pay for my costs. Because if you don't, I'll go do something else. But it's voluntary. You get everything for free. That means the brokest among you, and I was one of them. I've lived in places where there was no running water. I've had to use open pits outside as a bathroom. I did that for a little while, not long, but I've experienced that. I know what sponge bathing's all about. I know what scrounging's all about. I don't live like that anymore. But in the back of my mind, I remember days and times in my life where poverty was a very real and tangible thing in the most visceral sense, and I don't forget it, which is another reason why I don't want to put a paywall on anything or create special access channels for people with money, because I want to make sure the poorest people have equal access to the information as the richest people. It's just a level playing field. It's not anti-capitalist. It's not communistic. It's just the way I'm choosing to do things in the free market. We'll see if it works or it doesn't work. And the last thing, repeatable scheme. Often rebranded or relocated to evade accountability, leaves victims embarrassed to report. I'm Frank Vaughn. That's all I'll ever be. That's the only thing that I am. I start every video saying I'm Frank Vaughn, except for today's where I read the date deliberately first, because that's it. That's what I am. You're getting me. Now, admittedly, in front of the camera or on the debate stage, when I get up on the debate stage and I talk to people, you're getting a public version of me, like you're getting and when I say public, it's not inconsistent from the private version. It's just this medium in front of the camera allows me to speak in a certain way. It allows me to get going. It allows me to get passionate. It allows me to get loud. It's kind of a venting process as well. In person, people can verify this in my personal life. I'm not that much different in person. Maybe a little bit quieter. Generally speaking, especially when I'm not talking directly about politics, I'm nice. And if people disagree with me, I try to engage them in conversation. The point I'm trying to make is, like, I start with I'm Frank Vaughn. I almost regret calling the show The Fulcrum because I never use that brand. I did it because the idea of Atlas carrying the weight of the world, and I know it probably sounds high-minded or whatever, but that's how I feel. Because, like, when I'm offline, when I'm not filming, When I'm laying in bed at night and I can't sleep, I'm thinking about the world. I feel the weight of the world. I feel the weight of the things that are going wrong. I feel the weight of the question of the things that I don't know. And that's why Atlas really speaks to me. I called it the fulcrum because there's this right-left dichotomy. I think it's a false dichotomy. But there's a balance point, the fulcrum, where maybe you can drive at reality. Maybe you can drive at the truth. And that's kind of what I'm driving at. That's why I called it the fulcrum, the balance point. It's a very small point. Go to either side and the balance is off and you're drifting into the territory of propaganda and lies. I'm desperately trying to find that fulcrum, and whether I succeed or fail is up to anybody's interpretation. Certainly up to mine. I'm questioning myself all the time. If I stop questioning myself, I'm going to quit. If I start thinking I've got all the answers and I am the purveyor of ultimate knowledge and I have supreme confidence in my own wisdom, I'll stop doing this. That's just how it is. So anyway, I'm not rebranding because I can't rebrand my name. I'm not relocating because I already did that once. And when I relocated, it wasn't to evade accountability. It was to evade the people who were showing up at my door. Back in the day when the channel was originally blowing up, when I was involved in politics, I also had a farm. And the farm had a public-facing front, and people could stop by the house 10 hours a day to look at my products. Well, when you have your address online and everybody can find you, guess what they do? They see videos of you, and they start showing up at your door, knocking on your door at all hours of the day, and then you get people wandering around your house at night. Little unnerving when you've got newborn children and your wife trying to sleep inside the house. So I uprooted, left everything in Ontario behind and came out here. That's one reason. The other reason was, in my mind, Ontario it's a lost cause. It's being governed into oblivion. And I had to get out. I've always had this deep and abiding sympathy with Western Canada and the challenges that are unique to Western Canada that have been posed by the Eastern Laurentian mindset. It's a territory to be extracted, have its value harvested, and any semblance of autonomy or any time we prosper too much out here, the East comes along to tamp it down. We got Mark Carney right now, who is committed in his book. I meant to mention that at the beginning when we were talking about gold. In his book, he talks about gold as a relic of a former era. It's coming back. So is silver. But as I highlighted in my book review of values, he believes that printing money and MMT is the solution to everything. It's not, and the world knows it. But we have a prime minister who's committed to keeping us at zero gold reserves and keeping our guard down. He's talking about elbows up, which is a penalizable offense, by the way, in hockey. If your elbows are up too high, you get sent to the penalty box. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But like as they're talking about elbows up, they've set up a situation where the whole country is being destroyed and imploded, seemingly on purpose. Our guard is down. Other nations are buying us up and owning us. I highlighted yesterday how 70% of our gold production works into that graph that I first initially brought up. 70% of our gold is feeding this central bank hoarding in China under the watch of this government for the last 10 years as they buy up strategic interests in our country. A totalitarian regime that oppresses its Christians, oppresses its Muslims, is ethnically pure, which penalizes its effeminate men. All these things that the liberal government supposedly opposes are values that are core and central features of the Chinese Communist Party system. The same system that they're allowing to take over our country while we are boneheadedly focused on hating Donald Trump and our biggest trading partner, which is a lot larger of a concept than Donald Trump himself. But back to the point. Part of the reason that I relocated out here was so that I could resume this work. It took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take once I got here. I spent some time enjoying my family and my young children while they were young and safe and nurturing and loving every minute of it. But the fact is, I'm here. I did what I said I was going to do, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep doing it this way, even if it's hard. And the whole concept, and this is the last time I'm going to address, hopefully it's the last time. Sometimes I contradict myself, as I do. I'm only human. I'd like this to be the last time I address the entire grift angle. I have nothing I'm selling you. I have nothing I'm promising. I just work. I make videos based on my work, and you can choose to support it or not. If you want to, there's a donate link on the website. Thanks for your time, and I mean that. 56,000 of you choose to follow along voluntarily, organically. You found me mostly by word of mouth because the algorithm is not showing new people my stuff. You build this content out. You make it useful. You give it value. And I'm not just saying that. Every single like, every single comment, every single share, it is highly valuable to this project because none of the social media is doing us any favor, particularly YouTube, which, to finish off, my YouTube community, man, props to all of you. It's not to say that the people on X are no good or anything. I love all you guys too. But I'm telling you, I got a real good team of people. That's kind of how I see it. I got a really good community on YouTube. And I value all of you enormously. You guys are building this as much as I am. I'm Frank Vaughn. I'll see you in the next one.